It's not news. It's placating the audience. Because when you're dealing with a fragment of an already fragmented audience, you get the slightest blip, especially when you're CNN during a slow news period, you run with that. Because that's how you survive this broken business model. And it's not news. It's not even pretending to be news. Behind the scenes, they're basically laughing at you because they know it's all a show. And you know, that's one of the reasons why Glenn is so unusual, because Glenn's one of these people who still believes in this concept of telling the truth regardless of what that might do to the audience size. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for that, because there's no one else that was willing to do that, especially in this past election.
But I don't think, I really believe, and I could be wrong, but I really believe that that's who people are. They are not given the ability to be treated like adults by anyone else. They are treated, you get what, change what you're looking for and you'll change what you find. They're looking for, they expect everybody just to be a drooling dolt that doesn't know. And so they put a product out, and that's who they get.
But no one ever, see, here's the thing, Glenn. Think about it in terms of movies. I live in Los Angeles, so I'm somewhat familiar with the movie business. As you know, Glenn, the number one objective for all people in this business every day is to not get fired, especially if you got a cushy gig, okay? So so if you're in the movie business, you will never get fired for greenlighting Iron Man 8. Okay, or whatever it is, the crappiest episodic movies of all time, as long as it's got a name recognition and it's got a history. It could flop terribly, you won't be fired. But if you try something different, or if it's against conventional wisdom and it doesn't work, like for instance doing 42-minute monologues on a CNN show, now you're in jeopardy, because now you've broken the rules. So the rules are, if you treat the audience like a bunch of imbeciles and it doesn't work, you're not going to get fired, because that's the accepted reality. The only way you're going to get fired is if you give the audience too much credit and you end up with no audience.
Right.
And that's the reality of it. The reason why there's so little courage in the media, and this is, I keep going back to this last election, but to me this election told us so much about so many elements of our society, specifically the media, is the reason why nobody other than maybe Glenn had any courage in this is that there's no risk-reward ratio, because you just want to keep the gig, most people. The gig is more important than anything, because if you lose your gig in this business, they're very good ones are really hard to come by. And for a lot of the people, and this I think is what separates me, for better or for worse, a lot of people in this business, they have their entire personhood wrapped up in the gig. If they lose the gig, they cease to become people. I've been, Winston Churchill was credited for saying the greatest exhilaration a man can have is being shot without result. I've been shot so many times, it doesn't even faze me anymore. My personhood is fine, regardless of the gig or lack thereof. My wife might not be happy about it, but I'm perfectly cool with it. And in a way, I actually see it as a badge of honor. But I'm very rare in that circumstance in this business, because most people in this business are inherently insecure. That's why they get into the business to begin with. They need the affirmation of the audience. Love me, love me. Look what happened with Rachel Maddow the other day, with the tax returns. You could actually see her. I mean, she was glowing with knowing that this audience was going to be huge, and the fact that she knew she was going to be disappointing them didn't matter, because in the moment, all that mattered was that was going to be a big number that night. The fact that her credibility for the next night will be lessened doesn't matter, because it's all about today. Tomorrow we'll deal with later.
There's something going on now on both sides, and I have talked to people on both sides who are in my position. Most of them will talk to me off air. I feel like I felt in 2007 when I had all the bankers calling me and saying, you're right, just keep on going. And I'd say, I am? They'd say, yes. Will you come on and verify? Oh, good God, no.
Right.
But keep going, you're right. And I felt like I was staying alone. I'm having people now in this industry reach out to me and say, you're right. I don't know how to do my job. I don't know how to do it, but you keep going. And all I keep thinking is, all you need is a spine. All you need to do is care about what your truth is. And I think too many people's truth is, I'm a star.
Oh.
What your truth is, what is the most important thing to you? And to me, that is telling the truth as I understand it. I may get it wrong, but and you're the same way. What you've done on many occasions, to your detriment. I mean, you want to see somebody who has taken it in the face over and over and over again. It's this guy, because he won't sit down and tell the audience what they want to hear. Mm-hmm. That is.
But who wants to be me? In all seriousness, nobody wants. Some people might want to be you, Glenn.
No, you know what? No, anybody who says that does not know.
Okay.
That what my life is like. My life is your life.
I understand.
I just saved a little more money before it happened.
Fair enough.
It'll run out. I'll be with you, brother.
Well, to be fair, I knew this was coming too, and I saved too. So I'm not going to go poor anytime soon. But the reality, the bigger picture, the more important picture, taking it out of Glenn and John here, is why the lack of courage. And to me, this goes way beyond the news media. You know, this country was founded by people who routinely felt that the definition of sacrifice was to put one's life on the line. And this was not unusual. This was normal. That was the
lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
Right. That was normal for our founding fathers. Today, in all seriousness, among the elites, the notion of sacrifice is, I might get criticized. And that's not an exaggeration. Because I have dealt in the stories that I tend to go after the ones that are not popular. And I've dealt with some beacons of society. People who are highly respected. And yet when push comes to shove, they've got no guts at all. Because they have something to lose. Life is too good, I guess, now. Because if you're rich or you're a celebrity in this country in this day and age, it is a nice life, especially if you're not under a lot of stress, and no one wants to endanger that. And even being criticized now is considered a sacrifice. To me, I was brought up differently. Being criticized. I mean, whatever happened to sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I mean, I thought that was fairly routine.
So
but
how do you get there, John? I mean, I just realized. Recently, I've known for a while that my alcoholism, my crash, my losing everything, and then having to regain it all is what has given me the no fear of losing it all. I had it, I lost it, I had it, I could lose it, I'll have it again. And if I don't care. I'm happy either way.
That's the key for why you're able to do what you do.
I don't think so.
No?
Okay. I think I've known that. That gives me the fear. That gives me the cowboy with a twitchy eye, where everybody at the table's like, good God, he's not afraid to die. Don't draw against him. You know what I mean? So that gives you that spooky element of sitting across the table, and they'll say, we'll destroy you. And you're like, go ahead. And they're like, oh, God. People aren't willing to do that themselves. You know what I mean? What gives me the strength to do it, because I would just check out. I'd just take my chips and I'd go to the mountains and I'd go live it up. Mm-hmm. I'd just go do podcasts or do whatever I want and live it up. Courage, for me, is nothing without honor. Mm-hmm. And that comes from, for me, God, my responsibility as a human being born at this time. I was placed here, and we all are, and you must stand or you will be eternally judged. So it makes it much less fun.
That's fascinating to me because, and I don't know if this will surprise you or not, but I grew up in the Catholic tradition. I went to Catholic high school, Catholic college at Georgetown University. I don't happen to consider myself to be a believer, quote unquote, today. And so I actually come at this from the opposite perspective. I sure hope there's an afterlife. Boy, I hope. It would be awesome. And I hope that somehow people who do good here are rewarded and people who do evil are punished. That would make everything well worth it. But I'm living under the premise that that's not the case. And that what we have here is it. And that's why I've devoted my life to, if I can fix even the slightest injustice here, that's my obligation.
I'm not worried about the punishment or ramification. I'm not worried about burning in hell if I don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm worried about is, or I don't worry about, what I feel the responsibility is, each of us were born with something special about us, whether you know it or not. Every single person will have the moment in their life that is their moment. I don't know when it is. I don't know if I've hit mine already and the rest of this is gravy or ridiculous. I have no idea, but all of us hit a moment where we're to do whatever it is, the right thing. And that helps everybody move forward. And I do not want to spend my life and get to the end of it and say, what would have happened if I would have stood?
Mm-hmm.
What could have changed
mm-hmm.
had I stood and said something?
Similarly, I think you'll find this interesting. Part of what motivates me is we are all incredibly blessed to live in this country, the greatest country that's ever been created in the history of man. And what angers me is that we have squandered so much of what we have been given.
Amen.
Well, and so I feel an obligation to those who have sacrificed in the past to make this a great country, to not let it be squandered over people who don't deserve it and over concepts that don't deserve it. And look, if somebody else was willing and able to say and do the things that I've done, I'd be thrilled, because I really don't need I'm not looking for credit or anything. I just want it to be fixed, whatever it is. I mean, I know that, the subtext for a lot of this is what happened with Donald Trump in the 2016 election. I actually hope Trump succeeds, because I want what's best for the country. But I have great fears that what we have just done is completely squandered decades of the conservative movement for somebody who does not deserve it, and whose support we will rue the day it ever occurred, because we are going to suffer consequences that we can't even conceive of.
And you don't think, I want to take a break, but I want to come back on this. You don't think that it's Donald Trump, per se,
right,
that is the problem. You think that it might be the next guy or the guy after him.
Attention spans are way too short. I'm thinking big picture.
Okay, look, refresh your attention span, and then we'll come back and start fresh.